It'd be gas if it was live.
There we go. I think we are live now. Welcome back, everyone, to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? A bit of a technical difficulty there to begin, but it is week 3 of the Alliance National Football League, and we're going to be previewing all the games, discussing all the games here with Seamus Brady from On Clare. 16 games to look at in total. Some big ones in there, in the likes of Division 1, from the likes of Kerry versus Dublin. Donegal, Armagh have obviously had their fair share of battles in recent years. Division 2 has some big games as well. Roscommon versus Monaghan. Division 3, some interesting ones in there as well. Seamus, I suppose we're approaching the almost kind of midway point of the Alliance National Football League. So I feel like it's really sort of starting to juice up a little bit more. So after this week, we'll start to know a bit more about like relegations, promotions, who's going to be up there fighting for promotion, who's going to be struggling for relegation. So yeah, it's all set for an interesting week.
It certainly is, man. I'm buzzing to get into this now. Another good episode, hopefully, out ahead of us. I think week 3 after this, I think the table will have taken shape. I think we'll know who's going to be in the hunt for the top of the table in each respective division and who is going to be looking over their shoulder at the other way, especially in the more cutthroat divisions, especially in your Division 1, Division 2. Like, I think it was said on the TG4 commentary for one of the games was like, whichever team loses their home games is going to be the ones that go down from Division 1 because the away games are so difficult. And you're looking at candidates for relegation. I'd say in Division 1, you'd have to look at Mayo, Derry, and like those teams are at home this week and they've already lost a crucial home game, Mayo to Galway, of course, and Derry to Kerry. So if they back it up with another home defeat, they could be in big trouble. So I was saying it to Matthew on his show yesterday, big shout out obviously to Gaelic Statsman, that there isn't as many games as, the weeks obviously when the hurling is, full whack as well, but they're significant and they're definitely going to have a big impact on each team's season.
100%. Yeah, no, I mean, especially we're seeing how it's opening up already with the likes of Donegal and Galway obviously starting very strong. And there are some games as well you're looking at and think if like you're looking at Mayo Tyrone, which we'll get onto, defeat there for Mayo, and could be curtains, it could be done and dusted really for them across some other divisions as well, like some big matches. Laois versus Sligo, I think, is a huge game in Division 3 for whoever potentially loses that. But as we're doing something new, obviously, on the channel this year, where we're doing a bit of a predictions league, and for anyone who gets the most amount of predictions in each individual game week, will basically have they'll choose a forfeit for me to do. And we did do an L prediction. So for week 1, Gaelic Statsman got 8 points. Now, this was a bit of an interesting one because there was 3 games postponed. So it actually is now 10. I do need to go up and update that. And obviously week 2, we didn't have a guest on here, so I went with the viewers, the commenters. So we will add their scores in as well. Matthew's forfeit for me was if he ends up on top of that leaderboard there, was for me on a big championship game week on Jones's Road to basically wear a Cork jersey and basically with a big megaphone shout out that Cork is the real capital. So
wow.
Yeah, very, very creative there. Now the viewers actually didn't pick a forfeit, so I am going to leave it open to
take that one step further and make you do it on his 16.
There we go. Is that going to be your one?
Do you know what I mean? Like, because I know that there's one coming back at me. Do you get me? I know there's one coming back at me. I could be really nice to you and then, hope that, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if it comes to it. How to think about it? Put on the spot. What's a good forfeit?
We can leave you to think about it if you want, and if you want to say it at the end.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'll go with that.
There we go. Do remind us though in the comments because I am very forgetful. Rian says here, will he be talking about the Galway game? Absolutely, yeah. We will dive into the Galway game and we'll jump straight into the action now. So we'll start off with Kerry versus Dublin. I mean, it's a game that needs no introduction. It's a game that needs no preview. The biggest game in Gaelic football, in my opinion, in terms of history, rivalry, achievements, and everything else. There ain't no game bigger than this. But when it's the league, it is a little bit diluted, and we don't really usually remember the league games between these two because all the focus always goes towards the championship. I was looking at it there. Dublin's record in Clarny isn't great. It's been a long time since we've beaten Kerry away from home on any ground for that matter, whether it be Tralee, Killarney, or anything of that nature. So,
like, it 2013, that was the last time I can remember it.
Yeah, so like that's obviously we did have that 1 year in Division 2, and we kind of played them away every 2 years. But yeah, you would look at it and think it's probably like, as far as the fixtures go, like as a Dublin fan, like this is always a game I look at. Kerry away. If we get something from it, brilliant. But I wouldn't be entirely disappointed if we lost this. Like,
yeah, I think look, when you're looking at it, I think, I'm not sure if you went Donegal and Kerry, but I went Donegal and Kerry to finish 1 and 2 respectively, with Donegal on top, and that was why I put such importance on the Mayo game, because I was looking at that Mayo in Croke Park. If we don't win that, then I think we could be on the ropes really quickly. And because Donegal and Kerry back to back, I would not be surprised if we come out of both of those games without a point. So the fact that we got off the mark against Mayo was really, really important. And going into this game now against Kerry, you're right. It's a massive, massive task for the team. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that it's the first ever Dublin Kerry game where we're going to see these new rules in effect. So what the two giants of Gaelic football are going to bring to the new version of Gaelic football, it starts today, or it starts this weekend. And yeah, you're right about the league games. Like, they're not exactly crystallized in the memory, but they do serve as a very good prequel to what they could bring in the championship. Like, I remember 2020's league game as well between Dublin and Kerry. Do you remember that one where Clifford hit the late free into the sky to level the game, and then they had the big fight at the end, and everyone was like, God, I can't wait for those two to square off in the championship. And then COVID shut the world down, and Kerry had an absolute stinker against Cork in the Munster Championship, and it never came to be. But yeah, it really set the stage as well. I remember the league in 2022 when Kerry beat Dublin in, I think it was Tralee that time. And yeah, then we had to face relegation that season, and then the semi-final later on in the year. So what it does very well is it usually sets the stage for what we can expect in the championship. And then obviously, last year, Conor O'Callaghan's 3-goal, unbelievable his hat-trick against Kerry. I think he scored 3-9, was it, in that game? Just like an absolute ridiculous tally. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this with the new rules, seeing what both of these teams are going to bring to the table with the new rules at play.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and we haven't seen too much of Dublin kind of make use of the new rules yet, in my opinion, against both Mayo and
or Kerry.
Kerry, yeah. Like they did have some big moments now against Derry, to be fair. Like, they had a couple of big moments there against Donegal, from what I've seen anyway, of the kind of highlights or whatever. Again, they probably, it does feel like both teams, like obviously both teams don't have their best players. But could we see maybe like David Clifford maybe come back in here? Could the Coola lads maybe come back in for Dublin? Maybe Cormac Costello, Lee Gannon, I think I've seen, was training the other day as well. So, I mean, could we maybe see a few of the more kind of bigger players to come back in? Or again, will there still be a bit of, keeping them lads in the lurches?
I certainly hope that they come back in, because the thing is, from a Kerry perspective, we'll start there. You want David Clifford getting as much experience and as much practice with taking those 2-pointer shots in games as you can. And it's the same thing for Dublin. You want Con getting as much opportunities to kick 2-pointers as you can. You want Cormac Costello getting as many opportunities to take them. So I certainly would look at both teams and say, you need to be getting these lads back in now. And definitely a game against Dublin for Kerry and a game against Kerry for Dublin, like, it's the perfect place to bring them up to speed in terms of getting ready for the latter stages of the league and then kicking on into the championship. The fact that the league is in such close proximity to the championship means you do have to manage out your season differently to when before there was a little bit more of a break. But I certainly hope, just from a football fan's perspective, that we see Con, that we see David Clifford, because who wouldn't want to see them? They're the type of players that you'd pay in to see. And I think both of them with the new rules could be something pretty spectacular.
Absolutely. What are you thinking then, prediction-wise for it?
If I'm being brutally honest, as you said, this is always a fixture that I look at and think, oh, this is going to be hell of a difficult one. I said to Matchy yesterday, I said, can I be boring and say a draw? And but if I'm being brutally honest, I would be surprised if we get out of Kerry with something. Having seen Donegal go down there and win, there's definitely a chance that we could win. I just think we're in a little bit of limbo right now in terms of what team we're going to pick. I still think Desi is trying to figure out what his 15 is going to be heading into Championship, especially around the midfield. So I'd probably say Kerry might shade this one.
What are you thinking points-wise in terms of a margin?
2 points.
2 points. There we go. How it works as well with this predictions thing we're doing. So you'll get 1 point.
It's a bit of a catch-22. If Dublin win, I'm happy, but then I'm sad because I realise that I have to have lost points. But if Kerry win, I should be buzzing.
Yeah. It's a bit like fantasy football. Like fantasy football team, but I certainly wasn't happy when he scored last night. But anyway,
I'm doing shite in fantasy now.
Absolutely. But yeah, so if you get the margin of points correct, you'll actually get 3 points in the table. But if you get a prediction right, you'll get 1 point. So it was interesting. Like Matthew got 10 out of 13 predictions correct, but he actually didn't get any margin of victory predictions kind of correct there. So a little bit of an interesting one. But moving on from that then, actually I'll give my prediction for this as well. I'm going to go with Kerry as well. I think I'll go with Kerry by 3. I think at home it might just be a little bit too much for us there. Rian says here 118 to 116. So there we go. 2 point win is what he's going for. Derry versus Galway. Someone was asking about us speaking about the Galway game there. Like it's huge, obviously, for Derry. 2 defeats from 2. You feel like a bit like good old Mayo. If they, lose, then they're obviously going to be cut adrift ever so slightly. So if they don't win this game, Derry could be in massive trouble. And coming up against Galway, who've won 2 from 2, you have Paul Conroy who's kicking 2-pointers for free or for with ease. You've got Killian Cureen who's kicking them without ease. You've got Shane Walsh back in as well. Feels like an uphill task for the men from Derry here.
It's definitely going to be a difficult game. Galway definitely looks sharp. And I was saying this, making the point to Matchy yesterday, that this is the first year now, in the last few anyway, where they haven't had to manage Shane Walsh back from Kilmacud Crokes' journey. He's usually made it to the Final Four with Kilmacud Crokes, but this is the first year where Crokes were out in the Dublin Championship and Walsh had a nice winter to, kick back and relax. And by the looks of things, train. Like, he looks in good nick. And certainly with the 2-pointers against Mayo, he was killing them. I don't expect Derry to be as naive as Mayo were. Like, I was nearly at the brink of putting my fist through the telly. I was like, how are Mayo just fouling Galway on the 2-point line over and over and over and over again? I think they 5 2-point frees that they conceded. Like, that's just absolutely inexcusable. You can't make the same mistake 5 times. Like, what they say, once is a mistake, twice is a choice. What's the 5th time? So, yeah, we'll talk about that more when we get to the Mayo Tyrone game. But Mayo need to be more savvy as well. If you're going to foul someone, don't do it outside the 40-meter arc. And if you're going to foul someone outside the 40-meter arc, do it way outside the 40-meter arc. Don't do it on the line, especially when they have a kicker like Shane Walsh on the pitch who will nail it, no problem. So, yeah, that's definitely something for them to learn. But going back to Galway, look, the first 2 results are undeniably hugely impressive. They won a bit of a scrap against Armagh the first game. Like, it wasn't the most pure game, and it wasn't one that made everybody think, God, these new rules are sensational. It was a tough, hard-fought game. But they got over the line and they got the win. And then the second day out against Mayo, look, they made Mayo pay for Mayo's mistakes. They made them pay. They punished them every opportunity that they got. Walsh was deadly accurate. Conroy, again, such a Rolls Royce of a player. Killian O'Cureen as well looks like a real bright spark and definitely an option should a Rob Finnerty get injured again. So Galway looking very good, Nick. The 2 years that they've lost those finals, like last year felt like a harder blow than 2022 because 2022 felt like it was Kerry's time. last year felt like it was Galway's time to win it if they were ever going to, and kind of the same thing for Armagh. So for Galway to lose the way that they did very narrowly, it felt like a devastating knockout blow potentially. But they've fought back right, and they've made a very bright start to the league. Can't say the same for Derry, although they did show more fight in the Kerry game than I thought they had in them. I was honestly kind of thinking Derry could go the way that Donegal went in Division 1 a couple of years ago, where it's just kind of pathetic and they go down to Division 2. Like, I thought it could go that way just because of not because of the players, because the players Derry have are sensational. I mean, the form that they showed last year documents how good those players are. And like Shane McGuigan, Conor Glass, Brendan Rodgers, they're as good as you're going to find anywhere in the country. But I just thought with the fiasco of how long it took them to hire a manager, you cannot tell me that Tally was their number one target. He wasn't. And how it went to pot last year under Mickey Hart, I was thinking it could happen in the league and we could see a situation where they go down in turmoil. But they fought back against Kerry, and even though they came out the wrong side of the result, I would be more confident in Derry after that than Mayo, to be honest. But I see it as definitely a banana skin for Galway, but I think one that they'll avoid. I think that Galway will come out with the win in this one, I'd say, by about 3 points.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you as well. Like, it is worrying for Derry. Like, they've won 1 of their last 10 games, and one game in like when you're looking at normal time, they've won 1 game in out of the last 10 in normal time. Now, there were 2 penalty shootout victories in there against Mayo in the championship, and then obviously the Dublin game in the league. In that final in Division 1, but just 1 game in normal time, and that was versus Westmeath. So
that's
a little bit worrying times from how last season ended to this year. And as well as that, like, when you look at the team and players that Derry are putting out, like, you've got Shane McGuigan there, you've got Conor Glass playing, you've got Brendan Rodgers playing. Like, they're going strong, and they're not. Now, I do agree with you. I think they showed a lot more positive signs in their performance versus Kerry than they did probably the week previous. But it's a huge game for Derry, because they also play Dublin away next week as well, and the week after, and you lose 4 games on the bounce, it could be curtain. So feels like a massive game here. I'm going to go with a draw. I'm going to back that Derry have a bit of a fight in them here. I know draws, a lot of people are saying draws are now null and void and everything else with the new rules. It makes it harder, obviously, to predict draws. But you know what? I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to go for an L draw there. You're going by Galway by how many points?
By 3.
3 points. There we go. Mikey says, evening lads, Galway should beat Derry. They should, in fairness. Mayo versus Tyrone, another team that could very well be in a bit of turmoil. And interesting enough for Mayo, after this game they play Armagh away and then they play Kerry at home. So like the games don't get any easier for the men from Mayo. And as we were saying, like, it feels like, especially with the new rules and everything else, if you're looking at a team that hasn't benefited to the new rules or hasn't evolved with the new rules, it definitely is Mayo, because they're still playing the same way they played last year. They're still trying to play an overly running game. Like, they look like they haven't evolved really since, James Horan, to be honest with you. And if anything, James Horan actually had Mayo playing much better football. It was much quicker. It was faster, and was a bit more chaotic, or organised chaos, as people like to say with Mayo. But when you're watching them now, you just don't really know what they're actually trying to do half the time.
Yeah, like, I definitely think the first game of the league against Dublin, I thought that they looked okay. But again, I was saying it with Matthew, the one thing that I would be nervous about from a Mayo point of view, especially going forward, along with, as you said, the fact that they're not taking on as many shots, but they've no sharpshooter from the left peg. You look at all the best teams in the country, like, especially over the last decade. You look at Kerry, they have Clifford on the left, Shawnee on the right. You look at Dublin over the last decade, they've had Mannion on the left, Con on the right, or Dean Rock on the right. And then you look at Armagh, they've got Rian O'Neill on the right, Rory Grugan on the left, or Conor Turbot on the right. You look at Tyrone in 2000s, Peter Canavan on the right, Stephen O'Neill on the left. It's been such a constant. Like, you go back to Kerry 2000s, I could do this all day. Gooch on the left, Declan O'Sullivan on the right. Like, they've got so much examples. Mayo, let's run through their best forwards. Tommy Conroy, right-footed. Ryan O'Donoghue, right-footed. James Carr, right-footed. Diarmuid O'Connor, right-footed. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, who's a sharp shooting left-footed forward that Mayo have? The top one I can think of is probably Aidan Orme. But like Frank Irwin looked good against Galway in patches, but again, he's a right footer, and he would be taking up the spot that Tommy Conroy is competing for, that James Carr is competing for, because you're not going to get Ryan O'Donoghue's spot. So they've an overabundance of players who can do the same job at full forward alongside O'Donoghue, but then don't have that option coming in from the left, and I think they really, really need Aidan Orme to really step up his game this year. I think he could be a key to them having a good year.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, you do have Matthew Rowan in there now. I think he's right-footed as well. To be fair, he is a very
Jordan
good player.
Finn's right-footed. Like Jack Carney's right-footed. Like, goes almost through their whole team. Fionn McDonough's left-footed, and that new lad Connor Reid that they had at wing forward is left-footed. But Fionn and Connor don't strike me as sharpshooters like that Mayo would be wanting to get them to take the shot. Paul Towie, actually, yeah. Paul Towie looked good in patches against Galway. That's a very good point by Mikey.
Yeah. Killian says here, seeing how Shane Walsh tore Mayo apart last time, you'd worry Darren McCurry could replicate that. From Mayo's point of view, yeah, absolutely. Like, Mayo have the players there to really do damage. It'd be interesting to see maybe if the Canavans come back in maybe for this game. Might be a little bit too soon, maybe given the kind of injuries and everything that happened obviously in the All-Ireland Club final. But yeah, like, they have the players here. Like, even looking at Michael McKernan as well, racing up from fullback, who I think has been outstanding for Tyrone so far this year. You've got Ronan Cassidy as well, Shawnee O'Donnell. Like, Tyrone definitely have the players here that can do the damage. But you are looking at it from a Mayo perspective with Armagh next week, Kerry the week after. Like, you feel like they have to get something here, like, if they are going to survive.
Oh, big time. And just to go back on that, like, if Mikey's still watching, thanks a lot for pointing out Paul Towie. I actually was impressed with him against Galway. He was a bit of a leading light throughout various stages of the game. And maybe that is what McStay's thinking is. Maybe McStay has noticed, okay, we need a left-footed sharpshooter, because over the last few seasons, they just haven't had it. They just haven't had it to the same level in terms of variety of threats that the other top teams have had. Towie coming in is a good move. He looked sharp enough. It's just a question of whether he can carry the form into the championship and into the latter stages of the league. Yeah, Mayo need to win this game. Simple as that. They need to win this game because it's against a Tyrone team as well, who off the back of their defeat to Armagh, Tyrone might be looking at, games coming up. They still have Dublin left. They still have Kerry left. Tyrone still have Galway left. Like, they'll be looking at the rest of the games being like, we could be in trouble here if we don't pick up wins. So this is a massive game for both of these teams. And you know what? I've learned long enough as a Dublin fan, being head-to-head with Mayo, that they tend to follow a certain pattern in terms of the way that they play and the momentum and the way it swings. And the one thing I've noticed is whenever everybody is laying into them, they usually have a bit of a bite back. And I think especially at McHale Park, I'm actually going to go with Mayo to win this one. Name Mayo by 2 points. I think a bite back is coming. And I just wouldn't be surprised if they show something this weekend.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with that. I do think Mayo do have a bite back. I just think it will come in the championship or something of that nature. I think it will come later in the year. And even as well, like, I don't think going down to Division 2 is the big, like, I don't think it's not as detrimental as maybe what it would have been perceived a few years ago when Mayo were relegated. Like, I think we see teams now go down, come straight back up, and a lot of teams tend to, recently win All Irelands from Division 2. So I don't think it would actually be the worst thing for Mayo necessarily.
Back-to-back champions.
Relegated. Yeah, back-to-back champions. So there we go. Mikey also says, I'm expecting a response from Mayo, but see Tyrone rise in their game as well. Tyrone by 2. I'm going to go Tyrone by 5. So I'm going to go a little bit
5 points,
a little bit bigger and bullish there. Yeah. I think I think, to be fair, when you're looking, because I was looking back across a lot of the games earlier, and there are, like, the margins are bigger in a lot of the games because of these 2-pointers and everything else. So what would have been a 2-3 point win is now nearly like is now a 5 point win because you're adding in the 2-pointers. So
Well, I noticed that even at the trial games, I was like, because Connacht were definitely better than Leinster in the first one, but I was like, my days, like they are beating this shit out of them. Like I was like on the score line, I was like, this is ugly. Like I was like, there's gonna be some hammerings because we're in fairness, we're playing the league where teams are kind of at an even level. But can you imagine a Galway Leitrim or like a Kerry Waterford with the new rules in play?
Yeah, that is what I'm worried about, to be honest, when it comes to the new rules. But look, I know it's probably something we won't discuss today. But yeah,
we won't be making it home.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, you're going with a Mayo victory there. Surprise Mayo win by 2. I'm going Tyrone by 5. Donegal versus Armagh. Donegal are the talk of the town at the moment, but it is the All Ireland champions who are coming to town to play themselves. Obviously, I mean, who else would they be playing? So what are we thinking here? I mean, pull off it's very good against Tyrone, to be fair. Like they did silence a lot of the people who were saying there's trouble in the camp and everything else. But Donegal have looked good as well, like beating both Dublin and Kerry. And like both of the games, I don't even think Donegal were necessarily at their best. And it always just felt like in both matches, they sort of just had the other team at arm's length. Like it felt like Dublin like they're coming back into it, and then Donegal would up it. And it just feels like Donegal are just that little bit ahead of everyone else right now. And it would be a big statement if they can beat Armagh here.
Yeah, and I think McGuinness will be aware of that. If they can, in the first 3 games, beat the last 3 All-Ireland champions, like McGuinness will be absolutely thrilled with that. Like to go away to Kerry and beat them, to beat Dublin up in McCool Park, and then to get the current All-Ireland champions in Armagh, if they can beat them, it's an incredible start for Jim McGuinness with the new rules. And look, a lot of people were expecting a lot from him, and when you factor in that they still have Michael Murphy yet to enter the playing field in the league, things are looking very good for Donegal. I think they're going to win this game. I really do. I think you can't ignore the form that they're in. Armagh did have a very good win over Tyrone, but I just think Donegal are too strong, especially at home. And I can just see nothing else but a Donegal winning this one.
Yeah, and I mean, given the fact that obviously these two played each other a couple of times last year. I mean, they played each other 3 times last year. And when you look at the Ulster final, the Division 2 final in the league as well, obviously Donegal, I know they won the Division 2 final and the Ulster final. I can't remember now about the league game. They might have maybe won that as well. So I suppose Donegal have had the better of Armagh in recent memory. Like for Armagh, though, I mean, like given how well they played against Tyrone, though, like at the same time, they could be a bit of a surprise here. I definitely do think there's a potential here for Armagh to pull off a bit of an upset here. I don't know why. I just have a bit of a feeling they can do it.
Yeah, it would be a statement result if Armagh could do it. Their win is against Tyrone, and Tyrone beat Derry, and Derry are who everybody's tipping to go down by the looks of things. So it's very, very difficult. Look, like Kieran's comment there about the league game being a draw. Look, the league final was, they couldn't be re-separated in that really, and then the Ulster final went to penalties. They are literally the perfect stylistic matchups for each other. It's never going to be easy. As I said, I just see Donegal finding a way to win. They seem to be very much in the know with how to play this game right now. And you look at Darrell Boyle and the confidence that he had kicking those 2 pointers against Dublin, the confidence to go away to Kerry and beat them. Like, you can't ignore that. And I really do think, even though Armagh looked very, very good against Tyrone, and like some of their sharp shooting, especially from distance, was sensational, I still think Donegal will turn them over in this one by a narrow margin. Again, I'm scared to say that anybody's going to win comfortably because I have PTSD from saying that Mayo would wipe the floor with Derry in last year's prelim quarterfinal, and then we all know what happened there. So yeah, I'm kind of nervous, but I will say a narrow win for Donegal.
What are you thinking? A point? 2 points?
I'll say 2. 2
points. I'm gonna go Donegal by 4. I think again the home advantage, how good they've looked. Although Armagh, as we said, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Armagh pulled off a shock here. I can see them putting in a very good performance.
I thought you were gonna pick them the way you were talking.
Yeah, do you know what? I kind of was edging towards it, but then I just kind of started to
I really want you to, because then I'm gonna beat you.
Yeah, like I was starting to use a bit of logic then in my brain, and I was a bit like, do you know what? I think Donegal at home, how good they've looked. Although Armagh did look very good the last time out versus Tyrone, they probably did look a little bit off the pace versus Galway, and I do think we're going to see a bit of that with Armagh, where they'll probably look good, brilliant some weeks, and then probably look a little bit off the pace the next week. And I think ultimately, obviously, the big focus for Armagh will be when that Ulster Championship comes around. And it will be for Donegal as well, to be fair. But Donegal just always seem to, under McGuinness anyway, treat the league very, very seriously. Kieran says Armagh win this weekend. It could happen. It could happen.
The one thing I will say for Donegal is last season when they were, head and shoulders above everybody, it seemed in Division 2, obviously apart from Armagh that they drew it. They dropped one game at the end, wasn't it? They lost to someone where everyone was like, who was it? They lost the last game. Cork, was it? No.
Well, it was Cork in the Championship, yeah. I can't remember in the league. Yeah.
Was that what I'm thinking about?
Might have been, yeah. I mean, they weren't
raving about them, and then they lost a game that made everybody be like,
yeah. Because they didn't lose. They didn't lose in the league, I remember.
Okay, yeah. That's Cork Championship one is the one I'm thinking about then. I think maybe I got it mixed up with the league because Cork were in Division 2 as well. Yeah, I think that's what it was. But point is they've shown an ability to drop the ball.
Yeah. I'm half tempted. Do you know what? Fuck it. Armagh by a point.
More interesting. All in.
Here we are. Absolutely. Moving on to Division 2, Roscommon versus Monaghan stands out maybe as one of the big games in Division 2. Both have 2 wins from 2 so far. The Rossies obviously looking very good, especially with these new rules and especially with some of their forwards as well, whether it be the Murtha brothers who are, looking very good. Keane McKeown coming back in, Ben O'Carroll's there, and the Smiths. You've got Connor Cox as an unused substitute over the last 2 games as well. So, I mean, like the Rossies have like some amount of firepower and attack. And Monaghan, though, at the same time, like especially with all the criticism of Monaghan, not necessarily criticism, but a lot of people maybe not thinking they'll bounce back. They have gone pretty well as well so far, you'd have to say, under their new manager.
Yeah, they've started well. You would have to look at who they've played and take that into consideration. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Cavan and Westmeath that Monaghan have played, who are 2 teams that everybody is tipping to go down. So Monaghan definitely are a team that could get promoted. This will be a game that will really sell me on whether they will. Because if they go away to the Hyde and beat Roscommon, they're going up. This is the toughest test that you could give to anybody in this division, is to go away to Roscommon. I said this on Matthew's pod yesterday. I said from the last few years anyway, and I think you have to take into a consideration that they're obviously without like Manzi and other big players they've had over the last 2 years, like Kieran Hughes and so on. But I think Monaghan had shown over the last 2 years the highs, and then they could drop their level the most as well. They could raise their level the most but drop it the most. I think they have the highest potential in terms of a one-off performance of any team in this division. And I'd be pretty confident in saying that. But Roscommon are by far the most consistent. Like Roscommon are just like, what you're getting from them. Like it was pretty much a no-brainer that like, yeah, Roscommon are going to top this division and go back up. Like they always are just consistent. They get out of Division 2. They're very, very solid. And especially with the new rules, the former players like Diarmuid Murtha, Kieran Murtha, who's back in, Darragh Craig and Ben O'Carroll won't be here this week, I imagine, because of the Sigerson final yesterday. But they still have brilliant players around that, like Enda Smith, like Keane McKeown. Ultan Harney is back in this season. He's a fabulous player, I think. And then the Daly brothers, like they're really solid. Roscommon, Brian Stack, Connor Carroll's a very good goalkeeper, and then Davy Burke is a very astute coach. Monaghan, this is by far their toughest test. I think Roscommon will win, very narrowly again. I changed the record, but Roscommon by 2 points, and I really do think though Monaghan could win this game. I think they have the ability to win this game. I think they're the only team in this division that could go away to the Hyde and beat Roscommon. And if they do, then they're definitely going up.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know they obviously lost Conor McManus. Obviously, he retired, but they still have a bulk of players in there, whether it be Conor McCarthy, Jack McCarron. They still
David
have some
Garland
good.
looks good as well.
David Garland's been brilliant as well. So they do have some very good forwards in there, very good attacking players. And I think even if they lose this game, I think they're still in a very good position, in my opinion anyway, to go on and potentially be promoted. But I do agree with you. I'll go with a Ross.
It's Monaghan Louth. That's the big one for me.
You think Louth are in this promotion race as well?
Yeah.
There we go. Well, that leads us on. So we'll speak aloud next. They're going away to Cavan. Cavan haven't looked great at all this year. They've it just hasn't looked good. I think you've got Colm Nally now, who's left the panel as well, or left the management team after just 2 games. Which is a little bit interesting. They do have a few players back in, I believe. I think Oisin Brady's maybe back in the panel, back in the team. But it hasn't looked good for Cavan. They're under a bit of pressure. Raymond Galligan, 2 defeats from 2. And I would agree with you in the sense that I'd imagine you're backing Louth to win this one, and I would agree with you if you are, because I think it's not looking good for Cavan. But I have seen Jared Brennan isn't a big fan of the new rules.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised. They definitely prioritise defensive play and slow build-up and everything like that. So now that the game is a lot more fast and loose, it might not suit to the same level, but they still picked up a good win on the road against Westmeath in the opening day. And then they fought well against Roscommon, albeit they came out the wrong side of the result. I would look at this game as definitely a proving ground, because I think it's a bit of a live grenade for Louth. Like, they're going away to Breffni Park to play against Cavan. If the right Cavan team turns up, Cavan actually could beat them. So they have to approach this one with caution. I'm giving them the respect that they've earned in their consistency and their improvements that they've made over the last 2 years by saying that I think that they can make history this season and get promoted. And if I back that, then I have to back them in this type of game. So, yeah, I'm going to say Louth, but I really think they might make hard work of it. And I'll actually say Louth by 1.
Yeah, like it is interesting because, like, when you look at Louth's number of scores, they have actually had quite a low margin. Like, they scored 118 versus Westmeath, 115 versus Roscommon as well. Now, in previous years, that'd be a decent tally and a decent return, but in this kind of current start of high scores and everything else, it isn't a huge margin. But I do agree with you as well. I think Cavan will have a bit of a bite. They'll have to have a bit of a bite. But I think Louth, I think we'll just come through, in my opinion, by 2 points. You've got Down versus Meath, and what potentially could be arguably the game of the weekend when you look at the chances, or the kind of numbers that both of these two teams have been putting up. Like, both are 2 of the highest scoring teams across the entirety of the league. Meath, I remember on the opening weekend, create 40 chances, only put 20 points over the bar, but create 40 chances. And Down have been free flowing as well, like under these new rules. So this has the potential to be an absolute cracker.
It certainly does, and then it bears with it as well the Meath and Down rivalry in the 90s, which obviously started with the 91 final, and then of course you have the Tailteann Cup final a couple of years ago, where I think Down to this day will feel like they left that one behind them, and Meath obviously took full advantage of it, winning that day. Like, they're 2 teams that have a lot of flair players. Like, you look at Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello on one side, and then you look at like Liam Kerr, Pat Haven on the other, or on Murdoch for Down as well, as a brilliant footballer. Like, there's so much talent in both of these teams that if they can mold it into the right system, right unit, right starting 15, they're on to a winner. Like, and Laverty for me is definitely the right man at the wheel for Down, and Robbie Brennan is definitely the right man at the wheel for Meath. So they're 2 teams with exciting futures ahead of them, and this game could be really one to watch in terms of the talent that's going to be on display, the high scoring that's going to be on display, the skill that's going to be on display. Given that Down have home advantage, I would lean towards them. But Meath definitely showed in the Cork game they can go toe-to-toe away from home. But I think just like the Cork game, they'll go toe-to-toe, but Down will find a way to win.
Yeah, like, I think Down, like, both have players who can really exploit these new rules, whether it be Pat Haven with Down, you've got Oisin Savage, Meath, Owen Frains looked brilliant, obviously, since coming in from the under-20s last year. And then you've obviously got Jordan Morris as well. But or Keane was saying here, the Royal County to shade it. And, I agree. I actually fancy Meath to cause a bit of an upset, a bit of a shock here. I've really liked the look of them in the opening 2 games. I think they've definitely turned a corner under Robbie Brennan. I'm almost annoyed at myself that I predicted them to get relegated, because that was definitely a big and bold show. And I actually had Cavan in 6th.
Cork in 7th.
If I had just,
now.
if I had took that Dublin hat off just for a moment and looked at things a little bit unbiased, which, to be fair, usually I do, but sometimes maybe it does get.
You can take the Dublin hat off for the entire year, and you'd still have someone in the comments calling you biased and shut up. Of course, the Dublin person is saying this. I think I had some guy who on my comments just would not accept that Flanagan deserved a red card for the incident with O'Leary, and I was getting called biased, and I was like, I'm from Dublin. I couldn't give a monkey's who of these lads plays for what team, but yeah, we do our best to not be biased.
Yeah, Shane says here, well, lads, expect a Kerry win on Saturday night. Jeremy O'Connor has gone well so far. Expect a big game from Paddy. Gainies will cause problems for Dublin. Kerry by 3. Jeremy O'Connor obviously getting a goal versus Donegal the last day as well. So he is in good form, and the Gainies as well have looked very.
He looked sharp
good
with the new rules as well for Munster too. Remember, he got that nice goal against Ulster in the final.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see who picks him up. We've got Cork versus Westmeath as the last game here. Westmeath have lost 2 from 2, but have I think they scored 17 points versus Louth, and they scored 221 I think versus Monaghan. So they have been putting up big numbers. They haven't been a million miles off teams. I know they lost by 8 to Monaghan in the end, but it was a game that was a little bit closer. It was kind of going down the home stretch that Monaghan pulled away. Cork though, 2 wins from 2. Like, me and you have spoke a lot about this in the past. And
1 from 2. Well. They lost it down.
Oh yeah, they did actually. Yeah, the late kind of point at the end, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, even with that, then, you look at it and you think with Cork, I mean, inconsistency has been the big problem for Cork. So I mean, need to kind of win this really if they're hopeful for the promotion charge.
Yeah, and even just for genuine progress to be made. You look at Cork in the games that they have to play. They got that win against Meath, then they lost down in the game where, again, was similar to how Meath left Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Cork left Páirc Esler, okay, without a win and without any points on the board, but they'd shown themselves, they did themselves a good deed, they did themselves proud in that game, albeit they came out the wrong side of the results. I think if Cork are wanting to make progress, they have to win this game. But as Mikey said there, Cork have a habit, especially over the last 2 years with the old rules, where I said this last season, that Cork would just have the same setting and the same setup and the same plan, same formation, same tactics, no matter who they played. They'd be like, right, we're going away to Donegal, or we have Donegal coming here. We were going up against Kerry in the Munster Championship, so we're going to set up, hard to beat, very, very thoughtful when we have the ball. Don't waste it, don't give away any stupid turnovers, get our matchups right in defence, get Daniel O'Mahony on David Clifford, etc., and then be very economical with our shooting and take the time, work it into Brian Hurley's hands and let him have a shot. And they'd set themselves up to be hard to beat, hard to play against, and they'd usually do okay against the bigger teams. Hence why a couple of years ago they beat Roscommon, they beat Mayo, and they made it to the All-Ireland quarter-final where they gave Derry a good go. And then when they came up against the teams that they should be beating last season, they set up hard to beat, hard to play against. And then the other team did the exact same. And Cork need to be able to flip the switch to go, okay, we're the favourites here. We're the big boys now. You're in our backyard. We're going to take the game to you. And I think the new rules could definitely bring that out of Cork. And they have to embrace that. They've lost a lot of players in the off-season, as Matthew has said. Players like Brian Hurley's injured, Ian Maguire's injured, Stephen Sherlock has left the panel. So it's a new team. It's very much a new team. And they have to go for the new rules and have to go for this attacking style of football, because defensive football, I don't think that's the future, man. Thank God, because I was sick of it. But attacking football seems to be the way to go. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe like with the new rules, it's kind of nearly forced Cork to actually, play out a bit more and actually, take games on a
This
bit
should
more.
be
It's
a game
totally
that Cork
suited
win,
them.
by the way. It should be. If they've any hopes of being in the
Yeah,
promotion race, this is a gimme. Like this is
yeah.
literally the team that's in last place at home. You have to win this. Like if you mess this one up, you're looking over your shoulder, not ahead towards
Yeah.
promotion, because all of a sudden then Cork have lost 2 from 3 and they're in the melting pot, especially if Cavan turn over loud or something. It's like, no, you're right in there now.
Well, their next 2 games are Monaghan away and Roscommon at home. So, like, if Cork,
I don't think they're winning either of them then.
Yeah, like if Cork lose this, they could, be in more of a relegation battle than a promotion battle. But I agree with you though. I am going to go for Cork to win it. I think Cork by 6 is what I'll go at. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll say the same. Cork by 6.
Cork by 6. Moving on to Division 3. We'll get this one over and done with. First of all, Leitrim versus Kildare. Poor Leitrim are, I was speaking with Matthew there on Tuesday, reviewing the games and everything else. And yeah, I mean, poor Leitrim. I mean,
what was the score of that game again?
So it was 6 points to 320 versus Laois. So they were beaten by
down.
23 points. They were beaten by 17 by Clare. I know Keane, who's tuning in, is the most, optimistic Leitrim fan going, and we appreciate your comments and everything else, but it's hard to see anything other than a 10, 15 point. That's me kind of putting like this could be 20 plus again, really, like,
especially with the new rules, man. Like the point that we were making about that the new rules mean that if it's a one-sided game, it's a real beatdown. Like this could be the first 20 plus point win that we could see, especially the form that Kildare are in. Like they faced a really tricky away game against Sligo in Markovich Park, passed it with flying colours. They had a really tricky game ahead of them in round 1 against Fermanagh, who are known to, make things very difficult for teams. We saw how Fermanagh competed in Division 2 last season compared to Kildare, who were shocking. But Fermanagh competed in every single game that they played and were very unlucky to go down. And Kildare, again, made light work of it. Easy win. So, yeah, I'm going to say, and I hate saying this because I've family connections to Leitrim, so I've always had a soft spot for them. Yeah, I think it has Kildare I'll say Kildare by 15.
There we go. Do you think, just lastly on Kildare, have Kildare turned the corner, do you think, or is this more so the level
too
of
early to say
they're playing? Yeah, too early to say, you think?
Too early to say because they shouldn't be at this level.
And
I think I've seen a lot of people say last season that the Kieran McGeeney team put our expectations of Kildare up to a unreasonably high level. But I don't agree with that. Like Kildare have been successful and competitive for longer than just the McGeeney. Like you go back to the Mick O'Dwyer era where Kildare won Leinster in 98 and 2000 and made it to the All-Ireland final, where, on another day they might have won that game against Galway. But like they beat Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final and looked the business. And look, they just came out the wrong side of the final that day. But like they have a strong history, Kildare. And just in the last few years, it had gone to pot for them. And the thing that was frustrating was we weren't basing it off sentiment and emotion and Kildare should be up there competing. We'd seen these players. We knew how good they were. We knew that they had won the All-Ireland at under 20. We'd seen how good Daniel Flynn was. We'd seen how good Kevin Feely is. We'd seen how good players like Jimmy Hyland are. We'd seen how they competed in Division 1 when they went down, and they were so unlucky to go down that year. So we were basing it off what the levels that we had seen them reach, which is why it was so baffling to see them be so bad last season. And Brian Flanagan coming in, strong relationship with the under-20 players. That means he'll be able to get most of them back, because like the under-20 player of the year, James McGrath, he didn't join the senior team. I don't know why, but he didn't join the senior team last year. And that was another sign to me that, God, the camp must have been absolutely rotten. He just had a look at it and been like, nah, like I'm good. I'm away to America for the summer. Like that type. And yeah, I think Flanagan, there's a bit of a nicer atmosphere around the camp. I mean, it will always be nicer when you're winning games. And I think this year in Division 3 will do them the world of good. I can only see them winning this division, going up with their tails up,
and being confident of having a good crack at Division 2 next year and not trying to rebuild the team, which they would be had they survived.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I agree with you as well. I think Kildare, I'll go with Kildare I'll go by 12. I'll try and, stay on the more kind of positive side there for Leitrim, that they can do something. But and the thing is as well, you would hope that there would be a response, but then again, you would have hoped that when they lost to Clare. And speaking of Clare, they're playing Fermanagh. Big game, really. Looking at recent results and everything else. Obviously, Clare do have the likes of Owen Cleary back, who played well. Interestingly enough, their last game was also against Leitrim as well, and they played fairly well. That they finished with a tally of 2-17, having obviously lost to Antrim a week previously. Fermanagh had a fairly big defeat themselves versus Kildare on the opening day. So it is a massive game. It's hard, it's hard to kind of know where these are. Are they are they going to be in around the middle? I suspect both of these might finish in around the middle, but whoever loses this maybe might just be, looking over their shoulder here now.
Yeah, I think this one's a huge game. At the start of the league, I picked Clare to finish second, and I picked Fermanagh to finish third. And I think that this could be the game that just puts Clare that little bit above Fermanagh in the table, especially given it's at Cusack Park in Ennis. Clare do have the home advantage. Fermanagh have to make a long trip to the Banner County, and as you said, they lost a heavy one to Kildare on the opening day. They were better in round 2, but this one, for me, if Clare are going to get promoted, which I've picked them to do, this is a game that they should be winning. And as we said in the league, like, winning your home games is your bread and butter. Like, your home stadium needs to be a fortress. If you're losing home games, you're off to a bad start in your respective division. So I think Clare need to win this one, and I think they will. I'm going to say Clare by 3.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Clare as well. I think I'll agree with you. 3-point win as well. Laois versus Sligo is another massive game as well. Like, Sligo were a team that a lot of people were looking at towards, battling towards promotion. I think both. Did you predict them to be promoted? I can't remember. I don't think I predicted
Sligo. No, I put them fourth.
You put them fourth. I think I put them third, but we both put them up there. And if they were to lose this, they could be in a bit of, in a spot of bother. Laois are a weird one. They've lost a lot of players. They, were beaten by Offaly. Both of these have had defeats to Offaly so far this year. Laois beaten by Offaly in the opening day, but a great response, obviously, the last time out versus Leitrim. It's a huge game.
Yeah, it's a big game, and this is like a real 50-50 game for both sides. Whoever wins this is, can we kick on now? Because, Sligo would have been wanting promotion at the start of the season. Everything going on around Sligo football, Kildare, Strandhill winning, Connacht making it to the semi, the under-20 success, nearly beating Galway in the Connacht Championship, and then winning Division 4 last season. Like, everything's on the up, it seems, for Sligo. And the reality was they were just flat against Kildare as well, I thought. And then on the opening day, they were flat as well against Offaly. So, look, they made a slow start. But Offaly as well, like, Offaly had all the hype around them after their under-20 win, a couple of years ago. And Offaly are just a little bit further down the line in terms of those lads' development. So, Sligo, it's going to take time. And the one thing I've said is Division 3 throws mud on the tyres of any, hype train. It just genuinely, it slows a lot of teams down. And we've seen in the past, when, Down seemed to be, on the up and up, and then they missed out and had to spend another year in Division 3. Westmeath with John Heslin and Ronan O'Toole and Kieran Martin and Ronan Wallace and Boydu Saye and Desi Dolan as manager. And they had to do another year in Division 3. They missed out on promotion. So Division 3 doesn't care who you are, how much momentum you have behind you and everything. It will slow you down. And I said at the start of the league that I thought Sligo would slip up in a couple of big games, i.e. I thought they'd lose to Kildare, and I thought that they might lose to Clare and maybe trip up against a Fermanagh or an Offaly. And they tripped up against Offaly in round 1. And I do think they'll win this game. And I think that will put them on a spin where they will win a couple of games now in Division 3, including against their local rivals Leitrim, and that could see them maybe push for promotion, but ultimately finish fourth. But yeah, I think it starts here. I think Sligo win this game.
Yeah, I agree as well. Fancy Sligo as well. I think I think this is a game they need to win. Look, Laois needs something here as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think for Sligo, given the progress that they've made over the last couple of seasons, it is a huge game. In terms of a margin of victory, what are you thinking points wise?
I'll say 4.
4 points. There we go. I think I'll go with a 2-point win. I think it'll be a little bit more narrow, and I think Laois will put up a good fight of it. In fairness, Offaly versus Antrim is the last game in Division 3. Offaly have looked very good under Mickey Hart coming in there. 2 wins from 2, from what I remember. So they're looking good. Offaly. Antrim beat Clare the opening day out, and then lost to Fermanagh. Offaly at home, though, you would think Offaly should be a little bit stronger here. I think Antrim might have won this game though last year, from what I remember in the league.
I honestly don't remember if Antrim won it last year. I wouldn't be confident enough to say. But the one thing I will say is that Andy McEntie's Antrim have a habit of pulling out a result that does surprise you.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was Cavan were going up one year, like steaming up, and Antrim beat them, and everyone was like, hold on, like what happened here? And it almost put it in jeopardy of Cavan going up. So they are always capable of producing a result like that, but I just think Offaly are in too good a place right now. Mickey Hart at the wheel, and we saw how he transformed Laois before he made the fantastic decision to take over the Derry job. But you saw the trajectory that Laois team was on, and he seems to be working the magic with Offaly, because Offaly are set up for it as well. Offaly are set up for the right man to get at the wheel and take them to where they're capable of going. They've all that underage success behind them, the under-20 All-Ireland, etc. And then they've a really good structure. Even everything about Offaly, the way they're ran, like the social media and everything, like, is really, really good. And then O'Connor Park's a lovely stadium, and like it's the way that the Offaly fans travel when they really believe in a team, like what we've seen with the under-20 hurlers, like selling out for an under-20 final. Like, when does that happen? But when Offaly fans get behind the team, they really, really travel well, and this could be good for Offaly with Mickey at the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of their young lads have looked very good. Keith O'Neill scoring 4 points the last day. I remember seeing him.
He's a brilliant player.
Yeah, even against the Dubs in Crow Park last year, I remember he scored some absolute corkers.
Like the boot, yeah.
2 pointers in today's game. But I do agree. I think Antrim do have, they can cause shocks, they can cause surprises, but I think this might be one that'll be a little bit out of their remit, in my opinion. Liam says here, another win and it will settle us massively without having to worry about any potential relegation. Well, absolutely, yeah. You'll have 3 wins from 3, so I think relegation will absolutely be out of the question at that stage. So yeah, you're backing Offaly by how much?
I'll say 7.
7 points. Looking at Division 4 then. Wexford versus Carlow, first of all, in a game that feels like a lot of the games here, maybe you think maybe could go one way or the other. A lot of the games feel very even, but Wexford versus Carlow, Shane Curran's done well so far with Carlow, it must be said. But Wexford have 2 wins from 2, and do seem to have turned things around under John Hegarty. They got a big win the last time out, I think, versus Limerick it was. So, yeah, you would, or what would you fancy here?
Yeah, I like the look of Wexford. I think they're going to get promoted this season. I picked them to narrowly miss out due to their notorious inconsistencies over the last 2 seasons. But I think this year they're looking good. They're looking consistent. They're looking sharp. Carlow will provide challenges, obviously, especially the local Leinster rivalry. Like, Carlow will be able to tap into that to up their game. I just think Wexford, there's something different about them this season. I think that they're going to go up, and especially when you see teams like Wicklow dropping points against London, and like the way that Wexford beat Limerick last round, sorry. Yeah, I just think it's Wexford's time to go up, and I think that includes a win at home against Carlow. But also, what's your prediction for what was it? The last game? Jesus, a long day. Antrim Offaly.
Antrim Offaly. I'd go with Offaly. I'll go with Offaly by 5. Offaly by 5.
Okay.
In terms of margin of victory, what are you thinking for Wexford here?
Very difficult to say. Very difficult. Wexford by 4.
Wexford by 4. Yeah, I'll go with Wexford by 6. I think they've looked very good so far, and I do agree with you. The inconsistencies with Wexford have been, it's been one of them that you would throw towards Wexford, but last year 5 wins from 7 games, and their only defeats came against the teams who were promoted. I do think John Hegarty has turned around the inconsistencies a little bit, but we shall see what happens there. Waterford versus Tipperary. Waterford obviously recorded one famous win versus Tipperary last year. Waterford have look to be fair. They put up a good battle versus Wicklow the last day. They finished with 119 in the end. They only scored 4 points in the first half. A couple of good young players obviously playing in the Sickerson Cup as well. And Tipperary, it's kind of hard to know where Tipperary are at, in all honesty. I think they've had a couple of draws so far this year. But what are you thinking here?
Very difficult to call both sides. It's really, really hard to know where they're going to come in at, to be honest. I think I was impressed with Tip in the game against Longford. That draw that they picked up, Sean O'Connor is obviously back in there. So that's massive. But they're like, compared to like the last few seasons, like we keep going back to that. But their team is nowhere near the level that it could be at if they had all those boys back in the team. So it's a game that Tip definitely have the talent to win. It's just whether they're going to be able to get that talent out on the pitch, whether it's, injuries or absentees or everything like that. Personally, I think Waterford are a little bit more solid. They're a little bit more like, okay, they're building something there with Paul Shanky, who's a great coach. I'll say that talent wins. I think Tip have a little bit more of that, and I'll back them.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for Waterford here to do it again. Did it last year, draw, I think, as well, in the league last season. So they seem to put up a good, a good kind of battle of it. What are you thinking points-wise?
2-point win for Tip.
2-point win for 2. Or for 2-point win for 2. There we go. My brain's not working. 2-point win for 2.
Logged off.
Yeah. There we go. We're nearly there anyway. No, I'll go with Waterford by 1, by the smallest margin there. London Limerick. I'm just going to throw this out there. I think London are going to win this by 3. I'm going to go for a big surprise there. They put up a big win versus Wicklow when no one expected it. And I think Ruslip, you know what it is? I think it's a bit like, it's just one of them grounds that's tough to go to. And London do seem, in Division 4, they do seem to pull off these kind of big little results every now and again. And I think Limerick, I don't know, they have looked a little bit flaky, in my opinion. I know they put up a good fight versus Wexford. I think they won their opening game. But I fancy London to cause the shocker.
You know what Ruslip is kind of reminding me of? It's reminding me of the Britannia back in like the prime Barclays days, where like
yeah.
So I remember seeing highlights of one game that London played. I think it was against Leitrim, and James Gallagher, the big full forward that they have, he like scored a goal where it just looked like, it basically just like looked like, what the fuck just happened there? Like, where, how has that gone into the net? But how do you stop it in the same way? So yeah, difficult team to play against.
Yeah, no, absolutely they are. What are you going with Limerick to win, or what are you thinking? Yeah, I think that's a yes. I don't know if someone had you at gunpoint there or something.
I'll go with Limerick to win this one. Yeah, but I'd say now.
There we go. And then Wicklow versus Longford is the last one to look at here. Does feel like a bit of two teams maybe who have to win really to keep alive their promotion hopes between the two. Wicklow obviously losing to London. Longford have had a couple of draws in there as well. I'd probably fancy Wicklow, I think, at home to do it here under Ushie McConville. But what are you thinking?
Well, they need a bite back. Especially after the loss to London, they need a bite back. And I'll just address the obvious as well. I'm in one of the offices that is parked off in the building here. Didn't think anybody was going to come in, and then the cleaner came in with a Hoover who didn't give a monkey's to be on a call. So that's what happened there. Wicklow Longford, it will be a very interesting game. Because Wicklow need that bite back, as I said. Like, a lot of people will be looking at them now after they lose to London. Like, that result jumped off the page in the last round. So they need a bite back. Longford provide them with a big opportunity to do that. It's a local rival. It's a fellow Leinster county, and they have them at home. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Wicklow to win this one.
Yeah, what are you thinking points-wise?
Again, boring. 2. 2 women.
There we go. There we go.
If I say it enough times, I get enough of them right. But I just
yeah. But if you throw, that's the thing. If you throw enough stuff, enough slab at the wall, something will stick. Something eventually has to stick. But there we go. Player of the week prediction. What are you thinking?
Player of the week and bet of the week.
5 points on the line for this one.
Oh, what is this?
Player of the week. So this will be the official. Yeah, the official GEA player of the week. If you get it right, you get 5 points.
Shane Walsh from Galway. And prediction. Are you saying prediction of the week is in underdog prediction of the week?
Yeah, just outside shout of the week. Yeah,
I bet it.
Whatever it may be. Yeah.
Is Monaghan beating Roscommon an underdog show? I don't think so.
Yeah. I suppose it would be a little bit, but maybe not as much as some other results.
Mayo to beat Tyrone.
Mayo to beat Tyrone. There we go. Well, look, I've already said one in London beating Limerick. And in terms of my player of the week prediction, it does have the makings of a Galway player, but I'm gonna go Oisin Gallen of Donegal to be the big man there for Donegal. Let us know your predictions in the comments down below. Let us know your thoughts on the games and everything else. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, that would be absolutely brilliant. Consider checking out Seamus's podcast as well on Clitha across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all social media. And anyone, let us know your thoughts on the games and all that crack. And until the next one, we'll speak to you all again.